The wheels aren't coming off President Milei's omnibus just yet, but it looks like a bumpy week ahead. Legislation is slowly going through Congress, but not without compromise. The peso continues to lose value. Wednesday's general strike looms, and chaos in Ecuador could teach Milei a few harsh lessons. Welcome to A Bloke in Buenos Aires, presenting news and views in English from the capital of Argentina. Please feel free to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. As predicted, President Milei's new legislation hit problems in Congress last week. In both houses, his party, La Libertad Avanza, is represented by only a small number of seats, so it was always going to be this way, and Milei knows that he has to negotiate and make compromises with other parties and groups to get bills passed. To try to get around this, a couple of days after the inauguration in December, the president issued the now infamous mega decree with over 300 articles, which he claimed were emergency measures to be passed without congressional approval. Predictably, this put the congressional nose out of joint, and there are many legal challenges in process against parts of the decree. On top of that, there is now the Omnibus Bill with more than 600 articles, which is being discussed in Congress. The Omnibus Bill is far-ranging and goes much further than simply the economy. It covers civil and criminal codes, land usage, ownership, forestry and fisheries, health, education, fossil fuels, the right to protest, and electoral reform. Last Thursday saw some kind of agreement reached with some modifications to the bill, the principle being better protection for pensions and taking the state energy company YPF off the list of companies to be privatized. A group of more than 1,500 influential personalities from the world of culture, science and politics and trade unionism have come out in opposition to the president's moves. President Milei's attempts to bring the official currency exchange rate closer to the dollar blue, the parallel rate, seem to be slipping away. Obviously, the idea would be to eventually unify the two rates, so to bring them closer together, Milei and Finance Minister Luis Caputo devalued the currency by 54% shortly after taking office. This hasn't really worked, and the dollar blue continues to fall. Feeding into this decline are the high rate of inflation, continued limited supply of dollars, and the slow progress of the government's economic deregulation bill. In the province of La Rioja, the government has been considering protecting its people from the constant devaluations and inflation by issuing a regional currency. For those viewers not familiar with Argentine money, the dollar blue is a semi-official black market value of the dollar against the peso. This is much more favourable to those with dollars, such as tourists. It's just one of a number of alternative exchange rates to use to buy and sell anything from agricultural products to pop concert tickets. Wednesday is set to be a big test for the government, and particularly Security Minister Patricia Bullrich. The unions have called for a national strike against Milei's new policies. There will almost certainly be huge marches and demos on Avenida 9 de Julio and the Plaza de Mayo. There were a few small demonstrations in the first week or so after Milei's inauguration, but a heavy police presence made sure that everybody behaved themselves. Wednesday is set to be something much bigger and different thing altogether. A lot has been said about Bullrich's new policing policy, which is supposed to strongly enforce existing laws around how demonstrations are conducted. Previous administrations have always policed with a very light touch, which avoided confrontation but gave piqueteros a free hand. This will no longer be the case. Blocking of the road is no longer acceptable. Bringing kids on demos could see parents having their welfare payments stopped. Foreigners participating in marches could be deported, and the cost of extra policing will be billed to the organisers, as will any damage to property. Presidential spokesman Manuel Adorni told a press conference that any government workers participating in the strike will be docked a day's pay. Adorni also said that there would be a free and anonymous phone hotline where people could report if they'd been intimidated into joining the strike. And in other news, you may have seen the chaos that's broken out in Ecuador over the last couple of weeks. It seems that there's practically a civil war between the drug gangs and the government. But what has this to do with Argentina, I hear you ask? Well, firstly, the leader of one of the biggest gangs is a man called Fito, whose escape from prison seems to have been the spark that ignited the current wave of violence in Ecuador. Fito's wife and children, the youngest of whom is only 4 years old, were found living discreetly in Argentina in a gated community on the outskirts of Córdoba city. They have been detained and deported back to Ecuador. But the second, and more importantly, is useful to draw parallels between how Ecuador arrived at its current situation and where Argentina finds itself heading at the moment. Back in the 1990s, Ecuador suffered from out-of-control inflation and devaluation, and in 2000 the government decided that the solution was to dollarize the economy, much as President Milei would like to do here. In the short term, this may have balanced the books, but the consequences for society were the erosion of the middle class, increased poverty, crime and violence. I spent some time living in Ecuador 2 years before dollarization and again 2 years after. The change was stark. A dollarized economy is perfect for laundering money, and over the following years, gangs and cartels moved in to take advantage of the situation. Of course, there's no certainty that dollarization would set Argentina on a similar path, but there's no certainty that it wouldn't either. And a president who takes the first step will be long gone before he has to deal with any of the consequences. That's some of the news from Buenos Aires over the last few days. Let me know what you think about these and any other recent topics in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you liked it. If you did, please give it a like and subscribe to see more similar content. And if you want to support the channel, you can buy me a coffee in the link below. But until next time, que tengas un buen día.